Welcome to BioBox Labs. I'm Lisa, and today we're going to be talking about bony fish. These are fish such as salmon and trout, minnows, and even seahorses. These don't include, however, sharks and rays, which actually have a skeleton of cartilage, or whales, which are actually mammals. So what do these fish have in common? Well, today we're going to dive deep into studying the anatomy, or the structures, of these fish by doing a dissection of a fish called a perch. So join with me and let's start our dissection. So let's get started. First things first, make sure you put on your goggles and your gloves. And then you can assemble all your supplies, and you'll take your perch out of its bag. You may rinse it if you'd like before, but you don't need to. The preservative is not harmful. So let's take a look at the external structures of our perch. So we're going to take a look. First here is the mouth, and you can see that they actually have a hinged jaw that it can open up. And you're going to have a chance to use this blunt probe to be able to open it up back and forth and compare. How does it compare to your jaw? What's the location like? What's the movement like? And as you move it in, where does this probe actually go? And we'll take a look inside in just a moment. The next you'll see are these eyes, and there's one on either side. Theirs very different than ours are, because our eyes are on the front of our head, but theirs are on the side. Why do you think that would make a difference, particularly as predators are coming to try to chase after them? Would it make a difference to have eyes on the side of their head rather than in the front? What about the nostrils? Here we have little small openings on both sides of the face here, and you can see that they actually go in. These detect chemicals and allow them to, in a sense, get a smell of the environment surrounding them. So those are the nostrils. One of the most unique features of a fish are the fact that they have gills. Now, sharks and cartilaginous fish also have gills, but bony fish have unique gills. And there's this bony coverage covering over them to protect the gills. And if you look under the flap, you can see there are rows of gills under there. Now I'm going to cut the flap away, this operculum, this bony operculum, and we'll cut this away so that we can get a better look at the gills underneath. Okay, now you can see. Now, I'd encourage you to get your magnifying glass out, because you'll be able to really take a look at all the different layers of gills. So you can see there's a layer here of gills, and underneath there's another row of gills. In fact, you'll find there are 3 rows of gills, and these allow the fish to actually take in oxygen out of the water. So water will go in through the mouth, and then actually, you can see as I insert my probe, it comes out through the gills. So water comes in, passes over the gills, and the gills allow the perch to bring in oxygen from the water into their bloodstream. So those are the gills. The next thing you'll see is that bony fish have fins. Now, so do whales, and so do sharks and such. But bony fish have a unique collection of them. They have a number of them, and I want you to take a look slowly when you're looking at these and count how many fins do they have. Some of them are paired, like these pectoral fins over here. There's another one on this side. But some of them are individual, like this dorsal fin right here. There's another one here. And then there's the caudal fins on the tail thing here. Now, one thing that's interesting is that bony fish have tails, or fins, tail fins, that actually move back and forth like this. Whereas mammals, like mammalian in a sense, aquatic animals like whales, they actually have fins that move up and down. So when you see that, maybe you've seen pictures of them in the ocean and such, with their tail moving up and down. So this is their fins, and they have a number of them, and they have these spines in them that give them rigidity. And depending upon when they're moving, they can move their direction by use of their fins. The next thing you will see is that they have this scaly skin, tiny little scales. And we're going to do an experiment in the box that you'll get to take a close look at these scales. So what you're going to actually do is collect a few of these scales by scraping them off with this probe, and then set them aside, because you're going to get a chance to take a look at these scales under your microscope. First, up close, with a magnifying glass, and then later with your microscope to be able to see what are they composed of. They're actually somewhat similar to your fingernails, but these are growing all along them. They help them to both cut through the water and swim quickly, but they can also act as reflectors and help reflect the light and distract other predators that might come up to them. So scales are really unique structures, and they're unique per species. So a perch has a specific kind of scale, and other fish have other uniquenesses to their scales. So they have scales. Another thing you'll notice when you look up close is this line going all along the back here. This is called the lateral line, and it actually collects wave-like patterns that are going through the water, vibrations. So in a sense, this is almost like their ear. This helps them hear or detect the vibrations, just like our eardrum helps us to hear and collect vibrations around it. So this lateral line, and sometimes they're kind of faded in here, but you can take a look at that there. So that's the lateral line. The last thing you'll notice is this opening right here. This is the anus, and this is where all the waste comes out of the fish, and it comes out through that opening there. So those are all the external features. So now we're going to go ahead and take a look at the internal features of the perch. And we're going to be using your scissors, and you'll notice they have a sharp point and a blunt point, and then we're also going to be using your scalpel. The first thing we're going to do is make an incision from the head to the tail right underneath this lateral line. So we're going to go along here, and initially we have to kind of remove some of these scales so the incision doesn't go in. So we kind of might go back and forth a little bit, because even if this scalpel is rather sharp, it's tough to get in. So you can see that some of the scales are coming off. Might move them across, and now we get in. And we don't want to go too hard because we want to carefully go through but not wreck any of the structures inside. Okay, so now we've gotten in. And then we're going to go along the belly region, and I'm going to do this by using the sharp section of the scalpel. I'm going to go in through the anus, and I'm going to carefully clip, not going again too deep. And I'm going to cut straight up here to get from the tail all the way to the head as close as possible. And then we will connect these two lines. So I'm going to come in here and make a connection, and I'm going to connect this area. And it's okay if you clip off some of these fins. And then I'll come back here. Making sure that you have the sharp side of the scissors down and not going too deep. Okay, so now we can begin to pull away, and you may need to make a couple more clips here. You can pull away the skin, and we can begin to pull this away and take a peek inside. Now you can already see inside some of the organs inside of here. Now, for those of you who fish, you're used to probably cleaning your fish, and what you really do is just remove all of their organs. All the stuff that we're going to take a look at today are the things that you actually remove when we're fishing. So now you can see there's so many interesting things inside here. And if you look up closely right here, there's a really delicate membrane, and I'm going to probably have to tease it away, but that's going to be one of our most interesting structures. You'll be able to see the cavity, but the membrane tends to come off when we pull off this skin. So I'm going to go ahead and pull it off here. Now you can see the whole muscle layers here. This is all the muscles, or often if you're a fisherman, then this is the substance that you actually use for meat. And we can pull this back a bit, and now we can take a look at some of these internal structures. Now, one of the most important, as I mentioned, is this gas-filled sac back here. This is the swim bladder, and the swim bladder fills with air and allows the fish to actually have buoyancy, and it moves up and down, kind of like having an internal balloon. And you're going to do an experiment simply on the swim bladder when you do your experiments. I think that's experiment 2 or 3. So you'll be able to do that one in your bio box. Then you'll notice if we poke in through the swim bladder, there's a little bit of extra preservative, so I'm going to pour that out. And then as we see through this swim bladder, I'm going to move it off to the side. You can see that there's a dark line all along the top here. It's really along the spine. That's the kidney, and that filters the blood of the fish, of the perch. Then we'll see some other structures. This big, large organ right here, this tells me that this fish is actually a female. This is a sac, the ovary filled with eggs. And so this fish is a female. If you have a male, you will have smaller, they're a little bit more yellowish structures called testes, and they'd be in the same location but much smaller than this. So you'll be able to tell, is your fish a male or a female? Then I see a series of tubes. See this tube right here? This is part of the intestinal tract, and if I come in through the mouth, I can actually go, not only does it go to the gills, but it actually goes into the stomach. And I can find that this structure in here is the stomach here that connects then down, eventually goes from the mouth to the actually esophagus to the stomach, and then it winds around a bunch of tubes, and this is the final intestine, and it goes, empties out the anus. So you can see that this particular fish has some waste in its intestine. So it was eating something before coming to your dissection. So that is the intestinal tract right there. So then we have the heart. We want to take a look at that, and that's a very interesting structure, and we'll have to go back in because it's right below the gills, and I'm going to snip this tissue away right here, and you'll see there is a small cavity. Get that out of the way so you can see there's a small cavity under the gills here, and there it is. There's the heart. I'll move this away, and now you can see the heart. Fish have 2 chambered hearts. We have 4 chambered hearts, but they have 2. And it basically pumps blood from the gills that collects the oxygen. Then it goes all the way around the body and then comes back into the heart. And then again, it pumps to the gills, to the body, and around into the body. So they have a 2-chambered heart that's tucked away in this particular chamber right here. So these are the main structures within this perch that we're going to take a look at today. And your fish may look slightly different than this, but they all have similar structures depending upon whether they have their intestines are full, whether it's a male or a female. Sometimes they get preserved and they have a slightly different coloring to them, but this is a chance for you to take a look at your fish. And you can clearly see within this muscle all these bones in here. These are the rib bones, and this is what makes this fish a bony fish. Thanks for joining us today as we studied bony fish. Take a look at bioboxlabs.com for more videos and information, and if you'd like to dig deep into more experiments.